Hi, and welcome to Something to Talk About. I'm Linda McNamee, and for the next hour, we are going to be talking about the court system and how it can help children and families break that cycle of pretty much needing the court system. And my guest will do a much better job explaining that than I will, or than I am. But as usual, I would like to thank everyone for tuning in this evening. If you have a question for my wonderful guest, whom you will meet momentarily, you can give us a call at 781-270-9199, or you can email me at talk@bcattv.org. If you have a question, think of it later, or if you have a suggestion for a future topic, I'm always ready to hear it. I would like to thank Chris Flaherty, who is one of the staff members here at BCAT, for making sure everything's set up and ready to go for us and helping me with the show. I would like to thank my wonderful volunteers. We have Colleen Moore, Jolie Atwood, and Stephanie Floridis, who have given up their Wednesday evenings to come and help me out. And I would like to thank my husband, Paul, for staying home for Daddy Date Night, making sure that the children are done with their homework and in bed at a reasonable hour. Whew. Okay, now that that's over with, I would like to welcome my wonderful guest this evening, Ann Bader-Martin.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for coming.
I'm honored to be here.
And I was really excited. I don't even remember how I found out about, I think it was through the powers of Facebook that I found out about your organization and said, I want to find out more about this. So I'm so glad you were able to come.
Delighted to be here. It's a pleasure.
As usual, I always like to let my audience find out a little more about the guest, where you grew up, how you came to the Massachusetts area, Burlington, Boston area, if you aren't originally from here, and what made you decide to go into law?
Oh, okay. Those are different questions than I was expecting.
Okay.
So that's
Well,
all right.
what would you like to answer?
No, that's fine. That's fine. So I've moved around a lot, so
Okay.
there's no real good answer on where I'm from.
Okay.
I will say, though, that after meeting my husband and living in England for a while, we came back to the States because my husband went to work at Leahy Clinic. So that is our Burlington connection, although I live in Newton. So that is how I find myself. Eventually, I find myself here, and that is how.
Okay.
I became a lawyer, probably for the reason many people become lawyers or go into other fields that are similar, teaching, medicine. You want to help people. And so I think it's a primary human need for most people. We want to help people. And that was my only goal. It wasn't going to be a good money-making goal, but it was going to be an excellent goal in terms of feeling that I wanted to make a difference and be able to help people in the way that I thought I can best use my particular skills.
Okay.
And I always had a lot of concerns, as most people do, about children and families and wanting to see people improve.
Okay.
And so I went into juvenile law.
Oh, wow.
And so I have been working with children and families for 25 years. And a lot of the people I work with are very low income. I do some private work, but I think my stronger interests have to do with my focus and maybe my passion has to do more with helping people that are really struggling, how to push the ball forward, how to get more ahead. And so I have been involved with the juvenile courts, but as a private attorney. I don't work for the juvenile courts, and I want to make that clear. We're not the court system, but attorneys and social workers work in the courts.
Okay, because I think that's kind of what triggered me, is because when I think of helping people and, there was a foster care component.
There is.
And I'm just like, ooh, this is really interesting. So you are a private lawyer working within the system?
A lot of attorneys work through an organization called Committee for Public Counsel Services.
Okay.
And they cover all the attorneys.
Is that like a state thing?
It's a state thing.
Okay.
And they cover the lawyers in Massachusetts that do this area of law. We work through them.
Okay.
And while we're private attorneys, and that's a conversation all in its own, suffice it to say that we have to be certified by them, and we have to stay under their management.
Like an umbrella and
yes, as an umbrella organization. And then we work in the courts, but we work individually for the clients that we are assigned through the courts.
Okay.
Courts are primarily made up of a judge
Okay.
and all the clerk staff and all the probation officers. If you're fortunate, you have a court clinic as well.
Okay.
But they're not attorneys or social workers that are part of the court staff. So
They're
I think
like
that's worth
hired
knowing. Somehow there's going to be attorneys either private or through organizations that are going to help the people that are in the court. And because we're talking about juvenile court, there's also a lot of social workers. Department of Children and Families is heavily involved in the juvenile court as well. And what a lot of people don't understand is that juvenile court is not just criminal matters. Firstly, it's not
just punks stealing cars.
No. There's a little bit of that, but firstly, there's not the very serious crimes. They would be bound over to the district or superior courts. Murders, rapes, that's not going to be in juvenile court. Juvenile court's going to have a lot of the smaller things. The two brothers that have a fight and the police get called, that'll end up in juvenile court. The shoplifting, the school
So
fights.
anybody under the age of 18 who does something
yes,
that's
17 and under.
17 and under.
Right. It used to be 16 and under, but now it's 17 and under. So they will be in court. But not only that area will be there. Kids that the school brings to court because they're truant. They're not going to school regularly.
I didn't realize that would be a
That's juvenile court.
component.
Absolutely. Truancy cases. There's something called Children in Need of Services, which is now called Children Requiring Assistance. And if you miss more than 8 days in a quarter, parents should know, then you can anticipate that the school may decide to file against you, against the child. And it's not a criminal case. It's really a way of getting help to take, because we have kids that don't go to school all throughout Massachusetts, all through everywhere.
If you were a family that needed help, would you necessarily wait for
One would hope.
school?
One would hope not. But and many don't. Many will start to work with therapists and whatever. But there's a faction that has gotten used to the fact that their kid isn't going to school and doesn't really know what to do with it. And so we have kids like that in the juvenile court system. We also have kids that have major behavioral problems that the school will bring to court as well. So if they have a lot of difficulties, they may already have an individualized education plan, an IEP, or they may not. I may help them get one if they don't already have them. We may help them get into other school settings. We may help them stay in the school setting they want to stay in, but we will work in education areas as well. And another area that comes through are children that have behavioral issues at home. And the parents may bring them to court to want them to get some help. And again, that's not a criminal area, but it's an area where the kid is somehow out of control, running away, staying out all night, worries about drugs, things like that. They will end up in juvenile court for their own antisocial related issues. And it's not criminal, but it's another area the court covers. Another
area of concern.
An area of concern. And another area of concern is care and protection cases. And that's situations where the focus is not on the child's concerning behaviors. The focus is more on the parents' concerning behaviors.
Whether like abuse and neglect type things?
Abuse and neglect, exactly. And abuse and neglect can be what you think of as serious abuse. But it may also be like not so serious. I mean, it may just be like, a parent disciplining the child, which, and it's not as violent as one may imagine. It may be something much smaller, but they're still going under the abuse. And also there is neglect. And neglect may be something as serious, a parent abandoning a child, leaving a child home. It can also be situations where parents have their own disabilities. Either they have mental health issues, they have substance abuse issues, or they're sick. Some reason why they're not taking very good care of the child. And so those come to court. Schools will report it, neighbors will report it. Sometimes parents themselves will bring the kids there. So we deal with all those areas. We also deal, so this gives you a sense.
And then in your spare time.
Homeless families, all kinds of.
Because I was going to wonder how the foster issue.
So children that for some reason cannot live at home, either because their behaviors are really difficult and challenging right now and they need to be in treatment programs, for example, or just some time away from the parents
Okay.
they will end up in foster care.
Okay.
Or children, or again, teens who, for some reason, home environment is not suitable for them right now because
Okay.
of the issues that are going on with parents.
So just kind of like taking a time out?
Well, sometimes
or
it's more
regroup?
serious.
Okay.
Sometimes it's not just temporary. Sometimes
Okay.
every case starts out temporary.
Okay.
But some situations we hope can improve,
Okay.
and some situations just don't improve.
Okay.
And so what our goal is, and I know we'll get more into this, is to...
Oh, I'm just going with it. Who needs the notes?
I told you,
no, this is good.
I'm used to talking. But if you have children and families that you're working with as an attorney in court,
Okay.
and they're living below the poverty level, which is 80% of the children and families that are involved in the juvenile court.
Wow.
Everybody ends up there, but there's a significant number
But out
of people
everybody
with
in juvenile
problems.
court, 80%.
About
so only
80%.
20 of them is
20% are more wealthy
okay.
with problems, because a lot of people can, if they're wealthier, they may have found resources before they ever got to the court
Okay.
to deal with their problems.
Okay.
They may have more relatives that when the parent has a drug issue, step in and take the child. Say,
Okay.
child's living with me.
Okay.
But there's a lot of people that come
Don't
from
have those
homes. They
resources.
might have been in foster care themselves when they were children, and now they're parents. There's a lot of people that have difficult circumstances.
Okay.
And when they're in court, as an attorney working with either the parent or the child, and I represent both, not at the same time.
I was about to say, not
I
at the
may be
same time.
assigned to represent
Okay.
a parent.
Okay.
I may be assigned to represent the child.
Okay.
We have a lot of attorneys doing what I do, and they're amazing people, and they care deeply. So court-appointed attorneys
the fact
don't always.
That you did this for 25 years, I'm like,
It's not
why
past
isn't there
tense.
a burnout rate?
It's
I
not
mean,
past tense. I'm still there.
Yeah, well,
But we care a lot. Court-appointed attorneys go into this with their heart completely in the right
but
place.
just
They
seeing
want to
some
help
of these
people.
stories, I mean, how do you not come
Well,
home and
I want to touch on that one because to me that is
Okay.
a huge point. Why I'm going to write some things down so I don't
Okay.
forget. Okay.
All right.
Why this is not depressing? Because people always say, "Oh my God, your work sounds so depressing," and you're right. It is so depressing when you see children and families, and we're in court, and we've got judges, we've got oversight, we've got probation, we've got all these people there.
It's not Leave
and-
It to Beaver anymore. I mean, it's
It's real. It's real. It goes on every day. A lot of
Right.
these situations are invisible and you don't see them, but they're there. And if you look below the surface in your schools, in the little hotels that are the little old motels that are on the highway that are all turned into homeless shelters that you don't even know are there.
right.
Right below the surface, they're the people working in a lot of the fast food outlets and big box stores that are getting paid almost nothing. Life is not easy.
Right.
And we don't get to see it, and we see the fallout in court.
Wow. Okay.
And when you ask me, is it depressing? What's depressing is when you can't help them. When you see people that want help, and we don't have enough resources to help them.
Okay.
When I've got a mother that takes her 2 kids to court because she's a single mother, because she doesn't know what to do, they're fighting all the time, and they say, you know, I ask them, what do you do after school? And they say they don't have anything to do. You know, one says, I want to take soccer, but my mom says we can't afford it. That's depressing
Yeah.
because a lot of situations, and that's why when we said before, why is it 80% of the population that's in court are poor? It's not that they're worse people than the other 20%. The other 20% can pay for a lot more of the things that will prevent some of these issues
And
from
just have
coming
the
into
resource,
court.
like we mentioned, have
Exactly.
the resources available. Okay.
So one day, let me tell you a story.
Yes, I want to hear. Well, okay.
Okay. So I'll tell you a story, and this will be the
Okay.
story of why did I start this.
Okay.
Okay.
So
we
you,
have a
you
nonprofit.
started. Let's back up a little bit.
Okay.
You started an organization called One Can Help,
One Can Help. That's right.
and that organization is to provide the resources available to these children and families.
Right. Because of the situations I've described to
Okay.
a little degree, and we can go more into,
Okay.
that there aren't always enough resources. And one day, and so let me just say also, so when we would come across situations that somebody couldn't get the bus to come to court even, or couldn't take the bus home, they didn't have any money, we pay out of pockets. Attorneys and social workers are always paying out of their pockets
Kinda like
bits of
teachers.
money. We don't get paid much, but
Right.
we will pay it because you've got to. Or they say
Right.
you look at them and they say they haven't eaten all day. You know, you can't help. You just keep granola bars in the car. You know, you do what you can do. It's not big money that you can do, but you do what you can do at that moment, like
Exactly.
anyone would who understood and saw what was going on. and most of us just don't see it.
Right.
So one day,
Yeah, it's just raising awareness that this is going on.
Exactly.
Because, the surface, everybody looks,
you don't know.
happy.
Right,
And
right. It's absolutely true. So I was in a Dunkin' Donuts once. And this is in 2000.
Only once?
No. Good.
Sorry.
You're right. In 2005, I was in Dunkin' Donuts
Okay.
with a pregnant teenager. And she was about 7-8 months pregnant. Not what you want to have happen. Not my ideal situation for a lot of reasons. Her father had long ago left the family. Her own mother had been in foster care, and then her mother died of a drug overdose. She lived with her grandmother, and her grandmother was very old and really very emotionally not with it. Mm-hmm. And she wanted somebody to love. And here she was, very pregnant, living in a very small apartment. Really, this was not a scene I liked. Mm-hmm. And I had tried to have her think of other options, but she hadn't been able to hear that. So I was sitting with her trying to figure out, you're going to have this baby. How are you going to take care of this baby? Mm-hmm. What are you going to need to be able to take care of this baby? And we were trying to organize diapers, trying to organize how we're going to get a crib. And she kept talking about this stroller. She really wanted a particular stroller. She had her eyes on the stroller. The stroller. And I kept saying, no, we'll get to the stroller, but not yet. First, we got to figure out the diapers. We got to figure out where we're going to get the clothing. Where are we going to get, what's the baby going to sleep in, And, we worked out the doctor, all this kind of stuff, where's the baby going to go if you go to school? We got to keep you in school. How are you going to do this? And this went on for a bit, and we were getting some calls back. And she went on about the stroller, and I kept saying, no. And then...
Stop talking about the stroller.
And then before we got to that stage,
okay.
I suddenly got a tap on the shoulder. And I look over, and there's a hand with a check in it, a blank check. And a man says to me, with the blank check, buy her the stroller.
Wow.
And we all started to cry. And I realized at that moment, just like you just said before, if people could only see what I see in front of me, if they could see the people, they'd want to help too.
Wow.
And so it became like, well, how do we let people see us? How do we, because you can't trot out the children. You can't even trot out the poor parents.
Right.
We don't want to embarrass people.
Exactly. You
we're
don't
trying
want to draw attention to them, but you want to help them at the same time.
So that has been our challenge, because how do we do that? So what we do is we talk about it. I ask other attorneys and social workers to come talk. Every year we try to do a fundraiser.
Ooh.
And we've raised money. This is our 11th year.
Wow.
Of running this. We ran it completely with volunteers, only volunteers, for the first 8.5 years of this nonprofit.
Wow.
You gave a little shout out before to people that are helping you here. I will give a quick shout out. Without Ray Molly Goldberg, who's another attorney that does what I do, and Ann Kurland, and Moshe Gordon, and Pepe Portuando, and Debbie Levinson, we never could have gotten off the ground. I literally went to my friends and said, please help me start this nonprofit.
Wow.
And they wonderfully agreed to help me.
Excellent.
Most of them are still with us.
Cool.
They're actually all still with us, but almost all are still on the board. And 3 more people are on our board right now.
Excellent.
We had one of the judges of juvenile court were on our board as well, but then she went back on the bench. But she loved our organization and felt we needed to have this, because otherwise she can't make good decisions either about the people standing before her, because you can't tell whether someone is not going to school because they can't, let's just stick with the transportation part for now, can't get there. There's no bus for them, and whether they have some other issues, or whether it's because they really wouldn't go anyway.
Right.
So we help with whatever needs to be done, that when I'm in court, or when any of the attorneys or social workers are in court, and they see a situation where you want to hit your head against the wall, like this shouldn't be like this, we help them.
Okay. Now, do you use the social workers to, like, using the example of, do they just not feel like going to school, or is there like a transportation issue or some other real issue? Do you have to dig down to see? Because sometimes they might not want to admit the truth because they don't want whatever stigma there might be. I mean, how do you find that out?
Well, this is the nice thing about working as we're doing, and I think I couldn't have started an organization like this without being in the field and being in the court to see where does this fit into the grand scheme of things. And because this isn't out there elsewhere, there are some organizations that help kids in foster care. We help kids in foster care, but we don't just help the kids in foster care. We also help all the at-risk kids and underserved children and parents and entire families get whatever resources will make a difference and help them improve their lives or reach higher. That's our goal. And so we're bigger than...
Oh, is that all?
Yeah, or is that all? But whatever will make a difference.
Sarcasm.
So, no, I understand. But the attorneys and social workers, to do our job and to do our job well, it's, I know before we got on the set, you and I had a conversation about,
a brief conversation.
Am I a social worker or am I a lawyer?
Yeah,
and the answer is
it has to overlap.
You're so right. It totally overlaps because it's a very holistic way of working. Because I don't think you can do this job as a lawyer, and myself speaking as a lawyer, without, you don't want a revolving door. You don't want to just solve a problem and solve the court case and have them come right back in the revolving door. I have had that experience. Where they come right back in that day, even that afternoon.
Right. You don't want to fix a broken arm with a Band-Aid.
No, and that's not really what courts should do. Courts are a perfect time to create change. And so as long as we're going into court with a problem, let's fix the problem. Let's see what we can do. Let's provide the resources to do it. We already provide the court system. We provide the probation department that's defining if people are living below the poverty level. We have the judges that are overseeing it, and then we have the attorneys and social workers that are helping. But if we don't have the resources to provide it, I make the analogy sometimes that it's a little bit like being in a hospital and having great doctors and having great facilities and not having medicine, or going into a restaurant and having great decor and great, building and fabulous menu and no food.
I love this fork, but exactly.
Exactly, right? And so that's how we are. Why we have all these great resources in terms of people in a building,
Is it mostly financial resources that
financial
are lacking?
resources. And it's not just, we don't give children and families money. We give them the money to the attorneys or social workers who have identified a specific need that person needs that would make a difference. And I can give you examples of what that means.
Like you give them the bus pass. You don't give them money to buy the bus pass.
That's right. So like when you read the paper, you've read sad cases in the paper, and you think to yourself...
I stopped reading the news because it's so...
But when you do, right, you see some story, you read about a homeless family, let's say, and your first thought is, I could help that family. I could make a difference for that family. I can do that. I know. I'll call them up. I'll call up this TV station or the newspaper. I'll find the columnist. I'll get the way to contact them, and then I can get them in money, and I can help them with that. And you think, that's great. You can do that. And then you start to think about that, and you think, well, how do I know how money's going to get used? How do I know it's going to be used for what I think it should be used? Maybe there's an
or even like panhandlers on the street.
Maybe there's an understory here. Maybe it's really drugs or alcohol. Who knows what they're going to do? Who's going to watch over that? I have no way to know. You sigh. You turn the page, right?
Exactly.
That's what happens. You wish you could do something. Not because you don't want to do something. It's because you don't want to do something that you don't know really can make a difference.
Right.
Okay. So we are in court. We've got all the real problems. We know those problems are genuine because that's why they're in court.
Right.
Whether it's abuse and neglect cases, mental illness, substance abuse, truancy, behavioral issues, whatever it is, they've got a problem. That is why they're at the juvenile court. And then we have the staff I just mentioned, and the attorneys and DCF social workers, all trying to help. But we have very, very limited resources, so there's very little we can do besides talk at them and say, well, you better do this.
Right.
But we can't help you do it.
Yeah. Go figure it out. It's like, well, if I could figure it out, I wouldn't be here to begin with.
You might not need to be here. Right.
Oh, okay.
So sometimes this helps kids from needing to be in foster care. Sometimes it helps kids get out of foster care sooner. Sometimes examples of that might be...
Now, backing up a little bit, is this like school-age kids? Or
they can be little children.
Okay.
And they can be school-age kids. They can be teenagers. They can even be kids aging out of foster care. Because when you finish foster care, certainly by 18, you can agree to sign yourself in. to the department.
Okay.
And some of these children don't have parents. They didn't get adopted, or they came into the system very late.
And all of a sudden they're 18 years old and up a tree without a paddle.
Right, but except that do you mind if I take off my jacket? Is that
Just
my
watch your
little thing
microphone.
here? I'll behave myself here.
Okay.
Here.
No, not on, yeah, just on your shirt.
I'm sorry.
Right there. That's okay.
The lights bother me.
You're very passionate.
Sorry, the lights are hot. Thank you.
Oh,
Okay, so
okay.
so they when the children are aging out of foster care, so at 18 they can go. Is this all right?
Yep, I'm just going to turn the phone so it,
Thank you.
there.
I'm sorry,
So now it
viewers.
points to you.
I'm sorry, viewers.
That's fine. We're casual.
Thank you. So when children are 18, they can sign themselves back into the department, and the department provides some assistance to them.
Okay, which department are we talking
Department
about?
of Children and Families.
Okay.
That's where the social workers
So
are.
they go from children to family, a family of one?
Let me
type
say
thing?
that differently.
Okay.
Okay. So when in juvenile court, if a child cannot live with their family for any of the reasons we mentioned,
Right.
either because their own behaviors are so concerning it's not perhaps safe for them to be home,
Okay.
or there's issues in the home that make it not safe for them to be
Okay.
home, they go into foster care.
Right. And then when
Okay?
they reach
and they
18.
and assuming if they're little, they might end up getting adopted. If they're
Okay.
older, they're unlikely going. And sorry, if they're in foster care, the goal may be for them to return home,
Okay.
and the goal may be for them to be adopted. Over
Okay.
time, this becomes clear. It's not always clear at the beginning what's going
Right.
to happen, but one of those two things can happen. And some kids, the goal may end up being just staying in the department, have their family, but not get adopted, but maybe not even go home to the family. It's just a little bit of
Okay.
a rocky boat,
Okay.
but keep some relationships.
Because they don't want to go back and have the same
Some situations
cycle.
just aren't going to fully improve.
Right.
Let's say a parent with some mental health issues, but who really loves their kid, but the parent has some issues, and so the kid needs to
Right.
live in a foster home. It doesn't make sense to have that kid go for
Right.
adoption. Every situation is different.
Okay.
But once they turn 18, a kid who needs more supports, because who at 18 can manage themselves,
Right.
has the ability, if they are already in foster care and have not been adopted, to sign themselves into the department,
Okay.
which means that the department will agree to help them nominally,
Okay.
but keep them afloat
Okay.
for the next 4 years, so long as
Okay.
they're in school or working, with the hope to wean them off them by 22.
Okay.
At 22, they must
Okay.
wean them, so they're off. And so kids who are 22 have aged out of foster care and do not have access to other supports.
Okay.
So that's another category,
Okay.
you know. And I had a young man I was working with who, as he was aging out, was living in a small apartment with a bunch of other kids, and they got bed bugs, and everything got ruined. Everything got ruined, you know. And bed bugs is not an unusual thing. We've had quite a few kids and families that have had
There were
bed
a lot
bugs.
of issues a couple years ago where, like,
It's still around.
Yeah.
It's still around.
Okay.
So who, when you don't have resources, how do you deal with the bed bugs? How do you get new beds? How do
Yeah.
you get your clothes cleaned?
right, yeah.
People just throw everything out and don't have anything. So we've helped those families
Okay.
to be able to do that. I remember with the young man who was 22 who'd aged out. You know, we had to help him get a new bed, help him get his clothes cleaned. It was a
Okay.
disaster. You help get the apartment sorted out. Landlords have some responsibility, but it depends on the structure of the units as to whether.
It also depends on the landlord.
And it also depends on the landlord. So this is an idea of the kind of problems
Okay.
that people have. I can tell you more stories of the kind of situations if that's helpful, or you can ask, or should I wait?
I like listening to your stories
All right. So I tell you a couple of
because
stories.
I'm just like, look, how are families and children referred to you? It sounds like you are appointed a case.
A lot of
and
cases.
then-
We have many cases
Well-
at any one time.
Okay.
You know, if we are really busy, unfortunately.
Right.
We're very busy. And by providing resources, another thing we do by doing
Okay.
this, not only do we help the children and families to improve their lives,
Okay.
but we also help the attorneys and social workers be more effective and efficient in their own jobs, because
Really?
they don't have to hunt around for resources or watch cases not ever get any better.
Okay, like why reinvent the wheel type?
You know, we always say
thing.
about ourselves, you know, we didn't invent the wheel, we just make the wheel turn.
Okay.
As for the nonprofit,
like
because
that.
that's what we're doing.
Okay.
We're helping things move along. That
Okay.
can, not every situation can be fixed, but when it can, at least we can do that.
Right.
When a kid is unsupervised every day and the parents are working and they have
Right.
no way to put the kid anywhere, if we can
Okay.
pay for an after-school program,
Okay.
that's huge. If a kid is in foster care and is going living in a foster home, has just moved to a foster home in a town where kids go off to camp,
Okay.
it's great to be able to have that kid be able to go to camp too, because then they can start the year feeling like the other kids.
Okay.
We had, there's a young lady that sometimes likes to volunteer with us, who was in foster care herself when she was younger, and then was fortunate enough she got adopted by a family with means. But she talks about how she remembers crying to herself at night because she felt there was something wrong with her, that she couldn't do ballet. Why couldn't she go be like the other kids? That she must be bad. She must be a worse person
when
than
you're,
them.
7, 8 years
You
old.
blame
I mean,
yourself.
yeah.
Because, if you can't do the same things other people can do. So we can pay for that.
Okay.
We can also pay for, I mentioned before, homeless shelters. People suddenly become evicted from where they're living for non-payment.
Okay.
And you may have driven by sometime and seen a bunch of belongings out on the street. Well, if they can't store their belongings somewhere, even if they've gone into a homeless shelter, they've lost everything.
Yeah.
People lose their photo albums, they lose the
yeah.
kids' toys, and so if people are being evicted suddenly and they're in juvenile court, at least the attorneys or social workers who know them can apply for us to pay for a month or 2 or 3 for storage, so that they can find another place and not lose all their belongings.
Okay.
So that's another thing we do.
Now, I'm trying to also figure out in my own brain, One Can Help provides a lot of this, the financial support to provide the ballet lessons, to get the storage, to, find the better apartment, to get the new furniture. What about other community organizations that already exist that do this? Is it just there aren't enough resources?
There aren't enough, and there are some. There certainly are some. There's some fabulous organizations out there, the Boys and Girls Club, YMCAs. I'm not familiar with all of them in Burlington, but there are a lot of organizations. But what we do that's different from other organizations is our population is who's in the juvenile court.
Already in the system.
And so because they're in the juvenile court, we don't have to have the staff to identify if the need is real.
Okay.
We don't have to identify if they're poor. The court's doing that for us.
Okay.
The police and DCF and teachers and parents, everybody's bringing people to court. They have a problem. We know there's a problem. We know that they are living below the poverty level because probation determines that. So we don't have to do those things. We just know, oh, look, they're in court. They've got all these services. Why not provide the resources for them? So there are a lot of people out there that
Because I'm just wondering,
problems.
do you also do grant writing or?
We have to do grant writing.
Because I'm also thinking I'm involved in my daughter's Girl Scout program, and the Girl Scouts have what they call scholarships to send a kid to camp that can't afford it. So would you go and fill out these applications, or do you tell the client, look, these opportunities are available to you, fill it out? Or
Well, a lot of what we do is urgent needs. So another thing about us is we're not focused on doing the 8 weeks of summer camp. We do it when we need to. Sometimes we will refer people to other organizations. If they're applying now for a whole summer for a camp for a kid, if a social worker writes us, we will say there are organizations that deal with camp. Try them, and if they are not helpful, come back to us. Or if they need a deposit immediately, because otherwise they're going to lose a space for something that they really need. We'll pay the deposit.
Like a security deposit for.
We'll pay that and say go back and go look at other organizations because we'll do it. It's what needs to be done in 1 to 3 days. That's how fast we are.
That's impressive.
Because we need to be fast because we're dealing with urgent problems. So while we may do camps and stuff, that's not our focus. You asked me before whether attorneys and social workers, how well do we know people to know what their problems are? How do we know that?
Yeah.
But we often go to people's homes. If I have a kid that's an attorney that's not going to school,
Okay.
I'll go meet them at their home. Often the same families won't have cars anyway, and so you need to kind of go meet people where they are.
Okay.
But that's a really good way to sort of see them and see who they are, see if they're living among boxes and they're hoarding and life is really crazy, or whether
If
it's
they have,
neat as a
80
pin.
cats or something. Or...
Right, exactly. Neat as a pin, and people are trying, but maybe they've had domestic violence in their family, maybe they've been generations of poverty.
Okay.
Whatever it is, it can be hard to break these cycles.
Okay.
But you get a feeling about people, how badly they care about their kids' education, how badly the kid themselves cares. But when you see people that want help,
Yeah.
you help them. If I go to somebody's house and I find that they don't have the electricity on, that may not be the whole reason the kid's not going to school, but it sure helps.
Yeah.
Right? So
kind of hard to do homework by candlelight.
or heating or whatever it is, it makes kids.
What about like medical care?
Makes families feel
if
supported.
somebody needs glasses, or is that
We've
like
done
covered by
sports
something else?
classes, like a kid in foster care that there was no way to pay for the special sports classes that kid needed. We've paid for things like that, either in foster care or not in foster care. I have kids that want to do a sports activity so that they're not just fighting with their brother.
Okay.
We'll pay for that. Kids that you go to their homes and you see that they don't have access to the internet.
Okay.
There are a lot of families still that don't have a computer.
Wow.
Or don't have internet in their
Yeah,
house.
I know, like Burlington High School. I mean, everything is done on iPads now.
Right.
And
Can
what do
you
do
imagine
if-
what it's like if you don't have a way to access that?
Wow.
Foster kids that are moving around from place to place rarely have that. A lot of our poor families maybe have a computer for the whole family or not.
Okay.
Or it's broken. I hear stories
Might be
all
a
the
Commodore
time.
64 computer.
Right. They don't have anything. And
Right.
so we will provide those.
And you can't always rely on the library because after
You
know,
can't
20
get a
minutes,
half
you can't-
hour.
Yeah.
Filling out college applications.
and even college applications get expensive.
We have paid college application costs. We've paid costs for parents that are in homeless shelters that have found a job or got training to be a CNA, a certified nursing assistant, and they have to take some exam. We've paid that.
Paid for the babysitting while they go take
We've
the...
paid for the babysitting as well.
Okay.
If the attorney or social...
You actually babysit. No.
No, that I don't
maybe
do.
not.
But you asked me before, why is my job not depressing? Honestly, this is why it's not depressing, because it's not hopeless. And if we can provide people with hope, if we can give people an opportunity to believe that they can improve their lives and that people have not just brought them to court to make them feel small or to tell them what they're doing wrong, but to actually try and elevate them, I think we've done fabulous work. And it makes the attorneys and social workers also feel like we're doing better things than just calling 500 places to see if we can find a resource that often doesn't exist.
Now, how big is One Can Help?
Well, we are small and we are big. We are small in the sense that we have we have a few part-time employees. I've been working for free for 11 years at this, and so we have a very hard-working board.
Okay.
And then we have these two part-time employees who've been amazing. Ishel Waxman and Jen Martin are fabulous, and we have also people that work with us. The attorneys and social workers are constantly there to help us as well, because they apply. So we don't have to have a large staff.
Okay.
Because if you look at it in a certain way...
Well, I'm just wondering, not necessarily the staff, but...
How much have we done?
All of the court cases, every single case that you and your colleagues experience.
Yes.
I mean, you have to be a billionaire in order to help all of these people. And how do you decide who gets help and who doesn't? And, do you pay for the soccer practice, or do you pay for the electricity? Or, how do I help this family versus that family? And how do you decide?
Okay. Well, it's very
basically?
easy, actually. Firstly, I am very proud to tell you we have never turned anybody down.
Yay!
We've never turned anyone down.
Okay.
We just raise money every way we can. Small amounts, big amounts, everything is helpful. If anybody out there knows anyone that might be interested in donating, or organizations, contact
Check out the website.
us. Check out the website
Okay.
or Facebook. One Can Help is very easy to find.
Okay.
Because any bit amount of money makes a difference. And if you look at what we do as our real program is helping the children and families involved in the juvenile courts, right?
Okay.
That is what we do. If they're poor, living
Now,
in
is it-
poverty, with anything that will help them.
Okay.
So then, and then your taxpayer dollars and mine are paying for the staff in there, the attorneys,
Okay.
the social workers, the judges, the probation, the court clinic. All of those are already being paid for, and that's kind of like our program. Right? So
okay.
we don't have to pay for any of that.
Cool.
Right? But what we pay for then,
So you could focus on.
we focus on helping them do their jobs better.
Okay.
So the attorneys and social workers, like I may have 50 to 70 cases at any one time, my own cases,
Ugh.
right? It can be a lot, right?
Yeah.
But
How long does one case typically last?
It depends.
That's okay.
It
That's
depends. That's another. You can put that
That's
on for a
another
sequel.
depend,
How does the
yeah.
juvenile court work? Will be another conversation. but we, the attorneys and social workers, even though you have a lot of cases at any one time, certain cases cry out for help.
Right,
Not
okay.
every case cries out for help.
Okay.
Certain cases, those are the ones you hit your head against the wall.
Yeah.
Because you just know, but for this lack of resource, this kid could do so much better, or this family wouldn't need possibly even to be in court, or the kid could be back home. Something could change.
Something could just, there's
Something
some
would
little
make
aspect
a
of that
difference.
story that
Would make a
says,
difference.
look at me, look at me.
That's right. So whether it's housing supports, activities, school supplies, transportation, we haven't even gotten there yet, or just emergencies,
Okay.
we can pay for whatever that is. And so the attorneys and social workers, when they see that case, the one that's crying out, they apply, which is already a great system for weeding out who you apply for, because the attorney or social worker has to care enough
Okay.
to apply. They apply online.
Okay. So
And
it's the
explain what
social
they
worker
need,
that applies,
or the
not
attorney.
the family.
No, only the attorneys or social workers can apply. And they apply, and they are the ones that know what that person needs at this time, are willing to help birth this, as it were.
Okay.
Find the resource. The kid wants to take music classes. They may talk to the family, figure out what would be
Okay.
doable, how would they get there, and they will put that together for us. What is actually needed.
Okay.
They need $70 for 3 months because we also don't want to throw away money. You know how kids are. They may think they like to think this activity, but they're not actually going to stick it out. We don't want to waste money. We're
Right.
conscious.
Oh,
people
that
are
never
giving-
happens with children.
Right, people are giving us their hard-earned money
Okay.
too, but they're donating to us and they're trusting us. So we want to make sure we do the best we can by that. So we will maybe do 2 or 3 months of something
Okay.
to let people
Like
have
an
a
8-week
chance.
course to
Right.
see,
If
is
it's
this
good,
really what you want to
can
do?
apply again. If it's
Oh,
working, you can apply again. We have no objections. We could fund it for years. If it's working and there's no other way to get that resource, we'll do that.
Now, with some of the resources, not necessarily the electricity aspect, but something like a child needs a computer, or the family needs internet access, or the soccer lessons, or the dance lessons, or the music lessons. When a staff member applies for that, and
Attorney or social worker applies.
yes, no, I don't know who, but let's say internet connection, and you go to a cable provider or an internet service provider. Back to the story where you were sitting in the Dunkin' Donuts and somebody handed you over the blank check. Is there ever a company that says, oh yeah, we will provide, 6 families in your organization with free internet access?
We have not had that happen yet.
Okay.
Uber's another organization, that I'd love to
Okay.
find a way to reach out to. But Staples has given us a grant before when they hopefully they're being lovely, and
Because I'm like thinking music schools.
right, everything.
would-
What we
okay.
aren't good at is being able to take just donations of things. People will call us and say,
Oh, like the
"Can we
in-kind
give you our
donations, yeah.
strollers? Can we give you our
Okay.
books?" No,
Because then you got a whole storage issue.
That's right. We're not a storage. There's Cradles to Crayons, a fabulous organization. There are other places for things like that. That's not what we do. Our primary focus
Okay.
is urgent needs that are individualized for the person before us, for that particular kid or family.
Okay.
that makes a difference for them. As I say, it's not mittens to everybody in the shelter.
Okay.
You know, there are organizations that donate all these mittens and bring them to the shelter. Some people have mittens.
Right.
You know, so that's great that they do this. And it makes sense that they would do this because they have no way to individualize something.
Okay.
We, because we're in the courts working with the people with the problem
Okay.
who get to know them well, we can see the individualized need that's needed. And by addressing that need,
Right.
we can help
Okay.
the whole court system work better.
Well, I'm just trying to,
Yeah, no,
stream of consciousness, think
No,
of,
please, 'cause
expanding the web,
Yes.
because why should it be up to one can help to always be writing the checks for all of these things, where it would be great if you had a local music school in, the greater Boston area or whatever community you're servicing to say, okay, anytime you need it, send your kid over here. And that, like a list of resources for
Right.
in-kind
Yes.
contributions.
Yes.
I'm just wondering
No,
if that
that's
existed.
interesting.
Or
I mean, the only thing for us to say about that is, firstly, we have been in Middlesex for 10 years. And we decided, because we get calls and letters from judges and attorneys and social workers throughout the state
Okay.
asking why we're not there, why we're not in their areas, we decided, hopefully we'll be able to continue, to run a pilot and try and branch out through Metro West and now through the state to be able to provide whatever's needed for other juvenile courts as well, not just the ones in Middlesex.
Okay.
And so we are doing that.
Okay.
And it's a soft rollout because most of our requests.
That's a lot of work.
Most of our requests, but we're very scalable. We're very much, our system could handle what we're handling now or could handle the whole state the same way.
Okay.
It doesn't change because of how we operate with the courts and attorneys and social workers and our online system.
Okay.
So we can do it. We just need the funds to be able to run at the speed we need to run. But because there's no other organization that is working specifically to focus on the juvenile court involved populations,
Okay.
we want to be there because we all need it for the reasons discussed. So we're hoping to raise the money to be able to provide more of the services that are necessary throughout the state. And transportation, I have to just make a big shout out on transportation. It is such a big issue that think what it's like for you when you don't have a car. If your car's not working for a day, how do you get around?
Yeah.
It's one thing to be in Boston, and then it's a question, you got a bus at least. But any of the suburbs, it's a killer. And there are lots of families that don't have any transportation to get around.
And also, even if there is public transportation out in the suburbs, yes, there is a bus from Burlington that there's a couple of bus routes, but still, when those bus routes are, they're very limited and
they're expensive.
they're expensive. And you also spend so much time. I mean, if you're making a minimum wage job, and we've heard a lot about this in the news, where some families they're working like 3 minimum wage jobs, and they're still. If you have to spend 3 hours a day just commuting, that's 3 hours that you could be working.
Right. And so we pay a lot of bus passes, train passes for a couple months to get people on their feet. People end up in homeless shelters. We had somebody recently from the Framingham area who was in a homeless shelter that got switched to Springfield suddenly.
Ooh.
Right, all their therapists, their child was in foster care, all their services. They knew nothing in Springfield.
It's
They
like
didn't
an
have a
hour
car,
away.
right? Then how do they visit their kid? How do they do anything? We got them trained. We got them bus passes so they could get around and also be able to visit the kid because the kid was distraught that they couldn't see their parent.
Yeah.
They loved their parent. Most people love their kids.
And if
Most
you have a
kids love their
car,
parents.
Framingham to Springfield isn't bad, but if you don't, it's a major
It's a 5-hour
project.
drive, way to get there, connecting all
Yeah.
the ways you have to do that, and without even passes. So we pay things like that. We also pay if you are a single parent, for example, and you're the sole supporter in your family. You finally gotten back on your feet. There was violence. It's taken you a while to be able to function.
Okay.
Your kids are returned to you. You have a car, and your car gets towed. And if you don't have that $150 on day one, you don't have the $300 on day two or the $450 on day three, and you've quickly lost that car. You ever see in the paper when they've had the classifieds for abandoned vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean, abandoned vehicles? Who abandons a vehicle?
Yeah.
You abandon a vehicle when you can't afford to get it out of the towing.
Right.
Because after a couple of days, you can't afford to get that back.
Right.
So if
It's the
attorney or
cost of the
social
car.
worker calls us and says on day one, as has happened, they've got their car towed, can you help?
Okay.
We'd rather pay that on day one and help that person be able to keep their job.
Then wait a week.
You know, because otherwise for the 2 years that we've been working with that family, you know, helping them, you know, get a job, get an apartment, pull their life back together, to watch it fall apart for this, for that, it's like a house of cards.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that I think I kind of said before.
It's like Jenga pulling the bottom piece.
You know, that is such a good example. I have thought of that before, or dominoes.
Well, when you mentioned
that
the house
one
of cards,
domino,
yeah.
you know, and the whole, you could just watch them all like go down, you know. And it feels that way with some of our families are really fragile. They don't have nest eggs. It's month to month. Any 1 month
Or paycheck to
can just
paycheck.
paycheck to paycheck. They don't have mom and dad or family friends or sisters and brothers to call. There were problems in the families before them, the families before that, a lot of broken families. They don't have anybody. It takes a long time to be able to get back on your feet, or to get on your feet maybe for the first time.
Right.
You know, and these days with, you know, opioid addictions and all the other substance issues, there's a lot of broken families. So we can help them as they're pulling themselves together.
Now, you started this organization in 2005, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
11th year. This is
Now-
our 11th year.
Yay! Now, over that past 11,
Yes.
you know, having worked in the system before 2005 and then seeing what One Can Help has done, has it made a difference?
It makes a difference on an individual basis.
I mean,
we can't
Did there used to be like repeat customers?
Yeah, and there still are repeat customers, don't get me wrong. Firstly, we're not by any means taking care of all the people that need help.
Understood.
So right there, that's a small number. But we do have...
But the families that you are helping.
Yeah, we're in the process of an impact study. We get a lot of anecdotal letters. And I know from my own clients as well, where I've applied for resources, I might add that when it's my clients and I apply for help, I have to go through the system like everyone else, and I'm not involved in the whole voting that goes on and the criteria that's applied uniformly across the board. You know, we stay out of, we can't do that. We're not involved in our own things. But when we get a lot of anecdotal, and I know from my own cases as well, we can improve children's self-esteem by putting on electricity or helping them have a computer to be able to use to get their schoolwork done. We improve things like that. We can keep people in housing. We can by paying.
So basically, right now, the only evidence you have is anecdotal.
Well, we're in the process of an impact study. We haven't fully. We don't have all the results yet to crunch the numbers. But I can tell you, you know, it's a no-brainer. If your kid, you can't tell with your own. You've got children. You can't tell that if you paid for a month of camp for your kid, that month of camp made a difference for that child forever, right? You don't know that.
Right.
But you'd sure know that not having sent them to camp and leaving them home all day long instead wouldn't have been good for them.
Right.
So some things, it depends how you measure. You can't measure always in terms of like, as a result of that, did they go on and leave, you know, you paid $80.
Well, I'm just wondering,
did
like,
that
do you
pay
see
for a
like
successful life?
these families returning to court with similar issues, or
sometimes I can't say that. I can say that we have kids that get to come out of the court system. For example, a mother who has a kid in foster care, and the kid and mother has solved their problems, and the Department of Children and Families says you can have your kid back when you have housing, when you have a bed for the kid, and they can't afford the bed. We've paid for the bed. Or another kid who's in, so that closes it down right there, answering your question. Or a kid who is in foster care and could go to a relative, but the kid has severe asthma, and they need to be able, and the relative can't afford an air conditioner for the kid. And if we pay that air conditioner, the kid can go there. And there's another case. So yes, we can. Or the parent that needs to work with their child and repair a broken relationship, and the kid is in a treatment program several towns over, and the parent needs to be able to go visit so that they can start to work on the counseling together. If your state money, your taxpayer dollars are paying for therapists and they can't get there. Think what a waste of resources that is. And if your state money is, your state taxpayer dollars are paying for a treatment program for a kid, and the parent can't get to the program to work on the family therapy, these kids stay in these programs longer than may be necessary for transportation money.
Right. Well, we are getting close to being out of time, but earlier on you mentioned some of the fundraising efforts. Can you tell me a little bit more about that briefly? Do you have anything coming up?
Sure. Well, we will have in May, check the website, we will have a fundraiser. That will actually take place in Newton. But we are always.
What kind of fundraiser is it? Is it like a dinner, or is it like?
It will be a dinner, and we'll have state speakers. We've had Maria Mercedes before, child advocate, Gail Geringer. We've had some of the people that work in this area. Joyce Nardine from DCF, people that care about these issues. We're not sure who we have this year yet. We're just starting to work on that now. But we also really like to do house parties. This is how we started. Basically doing the equivalent of a Tupperware party. Where people invited their friends, and we came and explained the need, and people donated. And we are happy to do that, or send other attorneys and social workers and explain. Also, I want to let you know that we have already helped more than 1,350, because I know what number we're up to, families.
Wow.
That's how much we've done in the ways we've worked. So the system is huge. It needs a lot more than that. This study showed there's between 6,000 and 8,000 kids in foster care alone. So it's not that we'll ever cover the whole market. And we can't expect the state to be able to do all these things, because these are individualized needs. The state is taking care of what they can. DCF is taking care of what they can. There's a lot on everybody's plate. But when we, as attorneys and social workers in the field, see need, we are in the best position to be able to help at that moment and make a difference for these children. And so that's our goal.
Woohoo!
Almost clearing up problems. You know, Band-Aid approach has some real positives to it. You know, it creates it stops a wound. It stops a wound, right? It stops things from festering. It can be what helps people heal. So we're very optimistic about this. So we're willing to work with other organizations, or we're willing to work with schools.
So check out the website.
We just, like, if I can add also that for schools and synagogues and churches, we've come up with a little bit of a program for parents to be able to share with their children, for children to see how lucky they are, to appreciate that what it's like, that other kids, and to grow empathy, and to realize that not everybody has the things they have: internet, clothes, food. And so we're working with them as well. So open to all ideas.
Thank you very much. I think, we might need a sequel, but this was, I really enjoyed our conversation.
You were wonderful. I appreciate your interest. I appreciate everyone's interest. Thank you very much.
And I want to thank everyone at home for tuning in this evening. I hope you found our conversation as informative and as enlightening as I have, and encouraging, I think.
Encouraging is good.
And I hope you all have a good week, and I'll see you around town. Good night.